Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Bible study for everyone. Today's day number 24, and so we are in Matthew chapter 24. And once again, I'm Matt, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. So, Matthew chapter 24 is when Jesus and the disciples head to the Mount of Olives. And so, Jesus begins having a conversation with the disciples about the end times. And so, the whole chapter, Jesus is explaining what to expect when the end times come. And so, the first part of the conversation is the signs of the end of the age. And basically, Jesus warns that there's going to be a lot of things that happen between the time that the disciples and Jesus were talking and the end times. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of hard things that they have to go through. He mentions false prophets, he mentions wars, he mentions that people are going to have to suffer. And then he says something that's really encouraging in verse 13. He says that, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. And so the word of the day today is going to be endure. Jesus warns that there's going to be things that we have to go through. And I'll just say this, being a Christian isn't always easy. People are not always going to like the things that you're doing. You might get made fun of. You might lose friends. But Jesus tells us that we're going to get a huge reward. So then Jesus begins talking about what it will be like when this time comes. And I just love this verse, verse 31. He says, and he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. I just love this picture of God's elect, us, the believers, the people who gave their life to Jesus. We are the elect. And there's going to be this huge trumpet sound, and we're all going to be saved. So, yes, this chapter is not easy. He mentions that there's going to be a lot of hardship. He mentions that there's going to be a time when he comes and no one expects it, but it's also going to be so magnificent. And so at the end of the chapter, Jesus then talks about kind of what the situation is going to look like. And he compares it to Noah. And he says how nobody knows when this time comes. He says that in verse 45, who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find doing so when he comes. And his point is, it might be a while, and you might be thinking, oh, let me just continue on sinning for a little bit longer. But that moment could be right now. And I don't want us to miss it. So we've been talking about bettering ourselves. And Jesus says it right here. He said, blessed is the servant whom his master will find doing so when the time comes. Blessed is the servant who's doing the right thing no matter what. So once again, the word of the day is endure. Let's endure together. When Jesus comes back, I want us all to be living for him and experience that magnificent moment together the right way. And we'll talk next time. See you guys.